right, welcome to the Just Inspire podcast, where we mentor, motivate, and empower the next generation of leaders. I am your host, Mr. Justin H. Tucker, and I'm here to share stories, strategies, and solutions for thriving in today's world. So before there was Just Inspire, there was just Justin. I want to talk about that today. Let's talk about just Justin, a young man navigating life, fueled by passion, sometimes passion undetermined, but passion nonetheless. Facing challenges. I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, the South Side, New York, and I moved to Medford, a community called Gordon Heights in Long Island. This is where I learned my base of values of resilience, community, leadership. You know, a pivotal moment that I think really, probably sets the stage for how we got here is going to have to be in 1996. 1996 is the year my grandfather died. He would die in that September, a month before my 11th birthday. And, excuse me. What made that so significant for me was that, looking back at it, I've always been different. And I don't say that to mean cliche. But when I say different, like my interests were not, is not the usual. You know, like I'm really artistic. You know, I DJ, I draw, I paint. I'm a really creative guy. And early on in life, I was just drawing. And my grandfather took a major interest in it. He took a major interest in me. Me and my father, I love my father to death, and I believe he loves me too. We didn't always have the best relationship. And it wasn't because of hate. I think it was just maybe sometimes really strong men have a hard time respecting another strong one, especially when they might be senior to that one. Hence, again, why I'm so into mentorship, because I realize how flawed that could be. But nonetheless, my grandfather would always have conversations with my dad about the levels in which he worked with me, he loved me, and how maybe that support should have came about. And so, inspiration on my life up until I was 11, I always had somebody that I could go to, that I could just talk. I could open my mind, open my heart, and speak to. But in 1996, at just 11 years old, in the midst of a big shift, you see, I would move from Jamaica, Queens to Long Island that same year. And you probably don't realize this, but ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, when you move children, that is a traumatic experience. Children are not supposed to be uprooted and moved. You shouldn't be changing schools. Kids are supposed to grow up in a community space, and that's where they live. That's where your memories are supposed to have. But unfortunately, I had to deviate halfway through my childhood and had to finish it up in Long Island. You know, and it's funny, you know, thinking about it now. I remember going to college. This was a source of conflict for me oftentimes, because people that would just meet me after 1996 would always address me as being from Long Island. But my identity, I felt, was based on me being from Queens, because I lived there. I did things there. I went to the store. I did, you know, so many things, stuff that you can't even do on Long Island, you know, potentially. But yet everybody would attribute that to me because that's all they know. I want you to take a note of something. We're talking about the bias in people's perspective. And they always have that. Even I have that, right? The difference is that my perspective, like everyone else's, is going to be enforced by my education and my experiences. And even at 11 years old, I realized a lot of my education experience superseded not only my peers, but even some adults. Like, for example, by the time I was 11, I'd already spent summers in Chicago. As a kid in Jamaica, Queens, monthly I was going into Harlem, I was going into Bronx, and spending significant time. I bring that up because when we talk about children, typically in New York City, in any community, I come to realize those kids in that community typically won't leave it until they graduate and go to college or something. Families typically are not doing enough to get their kids out there and experience other cultures and things. And the reason why is because most families don't either, right? If your parents didn't do much, you're not going to either, because our parents are only going to encourage us based on what they experienced. My parents don't have college degrees, but they went to college and almost finished. Thus, They put that on me. They shared me those experiences. And a lot of my peers growing up, their parents did not go to college. And I believe that's one of the reasons, in addition to my own ambition and drive, as to why I had to have it. I was speaking to some ninth graders yesterday, and I told them, they were asking about, how they like to have free time and what they want to do. And I told them, to be honest, if I were you, I would be focused on how I can mold my future for tomorrow, because this is the time to do it. This is the time. You put in the work now, 4 years, and reap the results. But let me get back to my story about, my upbringing. So with me struggling with that identity, and look at that, struggling with identity, and I don't have somebody that I can go to comfortably and shed that. I brag about having a lot of uncles, but those uncles were all in Chicago. And I had two uncles that would come up into New York and visit me often, but being young and, like I said, dealing with this insecurity, I did not know how to communicate to them what I needed and what I wanted. And so, unfortunately, needs were never met. And that stayed something. And I would always try to find people that I could try to replicate that in. One of the people that I did a lot of that was with when I was in high school. I really felt close to Mr. Fabian, my history teacher. It's funny, he's a white man. I say that because I'm a black man. And I know a lot of you, race is a big thing, polarizing for you. It's not for me. I find it hard to, although I realize racism is real, because of my personal experience, I don't have a lot of trauma applied by white people. I have more trauma applied by people that look like me. So it's hard for me to, although I can acknowledge and I understand the history and the trauma and the plights that we continue to face, I can't go out here every day and just be hateful of some white person, because the reality is, in my experience, white people have done a lot of really good things for me. Now, some people may say that's privilege and so forth. That's an episode that we can cover on another basis. But I just wanted to address that little elephant in the room when I talked about my love and appreciation for Mr. Fabian. I think there was a Mr. Nieder. And there was, Longwood High School didn't have a lot of black male teachers. We did have a Coach Terry. And there was another man, I think Mr. Rohan. Being in high school, I never had their classes. I would not have a black male educator until I think I had one class at Johnson Wales, but honestly, it was not until I got to UNC Chapel Hill, where my first semester I had a Mexican professor. Loved him. Oh my gosh, the dude is amazing. If you watch his podcast, sir, I miss you. Love you. Thank you so much. So empowering when you have educators of different demographic backgrounds, because when we come from different backgrounds, we bring a different experience, which means we bring a different perspective, and that's how you grow. So I had him, and I had two black male professors at UNC Chapel Hill. You understand me? UNC Chapel Hill is one of the most elite, prestigious universities in the nation. And of course, unfortunately, sometimes there's some concern about the lack of diversity with the student body, because there's a lot of, I think it's about maybe 15,000 students, but how many students are black males, So despite that, I still was able to get that good experience with some pivotal black male leadership and education. And I just noticed how, when I've had those teachers, how much I paid attention. And I've always thought about, dang, imagine if I would have had this growing up. What if my first grade teacher was a black male? What if you know what I'm saying? Like, somebody that I could look at that probably I would have been comfortable to open up to. And also, teachers are naturally good at pouring in and bringing out. So I never had someone like that. I've had a few, black women teachers, and I'm going to be honest. Some of them have been good. Some of them have been really, really bad, damn near traumatic, And that's not to say or criticize. That's just to, illustrate and speak on what I've had to endure. That's it. All right, don't take that and make some kind of narratives with it, because that's not what I'm saying. I think there's power in everybody. In a perfect world, if I had a son and he was going to a school, if he had 4 teachers, man, I'd like them to have one of each. Get everybody in there. I want everyone around my son so that he has a more diverse perspective of the world. And that's how you get rid of that victim mentality. I can't be a victim. Even as I'm recording this, one day I'll tell you some of the things that I was going through when I was doing this. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't know why? Because I didn't sound or look like it. And that's important. And that's what mentorship is about. Even as I go through, my own trials and tribulations, I realize it's important the degree in which I show up, because this is going to speak to my mentees. You know, when they're going through hard times and they're challenged, not push back on them. They can't act like I don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm going to be like, excuse me, you know what I did to establish this. So yes, I can. I can tell you that I know that's unfortunate, but unfortunately, we still have to go on. I can say that to you because I had to say it to myself. So again, that pivotal moment in my upbringing was the loss of my grandfather. I absolutely believe that's like to get on a little Marvel nerve, that's like one of those core moments that just changed the landscape of the universe. You know, like I'm pretty sure if my grandfather didn't die, I'd probably be an artist. Like I would have kept on drawing and would have just went down that rabbit hole. You want to know why? Because he poured into that. I'm going to tell you something that's always frustrated me. A lot of my family that knew that I drew, they'll always say stuff to me like, man, I thought you were going to be an artist. I thought this, I thought that. You know what I hate about people sharing their thoughts? They always share their thoughts when it's too damn late. Why didn't you say something? You know, like I remember I talked to one of my family members. I was like, you care that much about it? I never knew that. Why didn't you say something to me? I'm a child. When you didn't see me drawing, why didn't you ask me? I'm a child. Why would you just hold that to yourself? So selfish. But nonetheless, you know, these are the experiences that inform my practice. All right. Let's talk about some of the turning points for me in my life. Another important, I think, career aspect for me was my military experience. Now, to give you a little background on why I got into the military. When I got out of college, which even that in itself, right, I originally went to college to become a sports agent. And by the time I graduated, I actually had built a relationship with Mr. Brian Levy. He's the sports agent that represents Mike Tomlin of the Steelers. We built quite the relationship, and he was interested in potentially doing something with me. The problem was I didn't understand how you can volunteer or not get paid, and I didn't have anybody to go to. Didn't have anybody that could maybe bankroll me, or I just had nobody to. I gotta survive. Like I have to pay rent. I don't have anybody. Didn't have a friend. I was like, yo, you could just stay with me. You know what I mean? And we'll figure it out. I didn't have anybody. I just graduated. I gotta make a living for myself, and I had this opportunity that I've dreamed about, and to be honest, I let it go. I just felt like it wasn't attainable, and that's so unfortunate. I actually think that's one of the biggest things that I hope to do. I really want to help young men. Whatever your dream is, I want to help you achieve it. I came so close to all of mine. It's just a little, and the funny thing is, I literally did everything eventually that I could have did back then to make it happen. So if you're listening to this, this is just that ventification for you. Like, I'm not that special. When I was born, my tongue was clipped to the top of my mouth. So my family members even thought I was retarded. And one of them was a speech. I forget the title, but, you know, she does language, and she thought that I was retarded. She couldn't even figure that out. So I say that to say it doesn't matter where you start. Whatever you dream, you can achieve. You just have to put the work in. It's not easy. It's not fair, but it can be done. So as I, eventually I would get my heart broke, make things work. Eventually one of my fraternity brothers would help me get a job at a JP Morgan Chase as a banker. And, it was decent money, kept me a good living. But honestly, I wasn't happy. I didn't like that. And I feel like I've seen a lot of people work just to pay their bills, and they weren't happy. I just didn't want that for myself. And I was also going through some serious depression because one of my best friends had just died very traumatically. I'm not sure if it's a suicide or what. It was really bad. And that really took a major, major, major block out of me. I got myself into the best shape of my life. I was going to the gym like twice a day because I had to do something to free my mind, because I don't know if I would have lived much longer myself. And while doing all that, I also decided I wanted to find an opportunity where I could maybe get out and just do something different. And one of my close friends, he was in the military, and he told me about this officer program, and he was like, it's a good idea. They'll finance you. One, it'll be a different, get you in a different space. And, the usual military stuff, they talk about all the benefits and things, which I get none of, but that's all right. That's my fault too. And regardless, the experience while I was in the military, I did that for 5 years. I probably would have did it longer. I was also in a relationship, and that relationship was tearing me up. I think one of the reasons why my relationships are so bad is because people usually have their own opinion of me, and their opinion is what they choose to live with rather than get facts. And so what happens is a lot of people that are close to me, I believe, have a real big bias or a misunderstanding of who I am. And so when I'm struggling and going through things with conflict, it's hard to find people that I could bounce it off of, because it's like I'm constantly blamed for what happens. Like, people can find a fault in me, and I'm just like, well, dang, it's not funny enough, but a relationship went really sour, and the person that I was in a relationship with, they needed a lot of help. And so once that dissolved, I relocated to North Carolina, and, well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let me jump back. We're still talking about the military, but that's one of the reasons why I think while I was in the military, that experience for me was just so, I didn't really understand what I was doing there. It seemed like at times it was hard to communicate. Like, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm messed up. I'm not afraid to admit when I need help. As I've gotten older, though, I just realized you have to be careful who you relate this stuff to, because everybody's not going to take your generosity well. Now, as I've gotten older, it's kind of scary. I usually just try to keep to myself, or I seek out professionals who I know I can do that with. And so that pretty much ended that experience, dealing with the struggles from the relationship that kind of crossed into how I showed up professionally. I would relocate to North Carolina. One of the best things in the world happened. COVID happened. And I'm going to tell you why it's one of the best things in the world for me. I used to always pray to myself, like, yo, if I could just get a few months by myself and nobody can get to me or bother me or distract me, I promise you I would do great things. And literally, during COVID, I got in the best physical shape of my life, like elite shape, and I did not go to the gym. I just was walking, eating better, thinking better, and just doing better. Because the reality is, by myself, I'm great. It's socially trying to keep up with everybody and the BS that everybody is so into that sometimes I would try to just fit in with, that was ruining me. And so once COVID ended, I relocated to Baltimore because I wanted to be closer to family and friends. And I thought that since I was doing so well in isolation, that maybe now being closer to familiar people, we could build on that. And unfortunately, it has been the complete opposite. 3 years ago, I moved to Baltimore, and I have to tell you, it's been like I was on a marathon run, and I've hit nothing but traffic stops. Since I moved to Baltimore, I think literally everything that can go wrong did go wrong. Yeah. So, I moved here to work at an all-boys school. It's called Blueford Jujimison STEM Academy. I was a post-secondary advisor, so I was doing pretty much college and career awareness and preparation for young men, similar to the work that I like to do through JustINSPIRE as a mentor. But I noticed quickly, once I got into the school system, that the images that they were showing me online and the positive remarks in the interviews was complete BS, because the schools were so poorly run. We didn't have core teachers. How can a school not have math, English, social studies, science? So it was like traumatic for me because I moved. Like I didn't just take another school, like I uprooted myself and I put myself in what seems to be like a terrible situation. I remember my first maybe week or two, I was just doing my normal routine. I was going to go to the front office and try to see if there's anybody I could, speak to. I walked into a gun sweep and I was like, wait, what? Shouldn't there be like a code on a intercom or something? Like, don't we have walkies for this? How would I, if I just stayed in my office, you wouldn't have said nothing to me. It's been interesting. And unfortunately, I've had many situations over the last 3 years while working with Baltimore City Schools where I just found myself in situations that were dangerous and extremely complicated. And I don't know. I can't believe it. How does this happen? And then we fast forward to last year, they closed my school. And they announced it after we set the mark for highest attendance rates. So we had the school getting the most attendance for boys, and they closed it. I stress that because here's something else I noticed. Since I moved to Baltimore, the last 3 years, the juvenile crime has spiked over 200%. It's insane. 40% of students are reporting to feeling suicidal. It's nasty. 60% of them are below grade average. I had a young man that graduated. He couldn't read. I helped him get into a community college. I urged him to get friendly and familiar with the Learning Center so that perhaps in community college, they could help you catch up on some of the stuff that you lost in Baltimore City. I literally every day I've seen and heard things that I just like, how does this happen? How does this happen? And well, one of the things that I realized how it happens is there's a gap in representation. First off, only 4% of educators are black men in the state of Maryland. How can a city with so many black people lack like that? The mayor, the governor is a black man. I mean, come on. We need a voice. We need role models. And so I started developing the mentoring program right then and there. I started working with kids in the school. One of the additional problems I had, though, was personal issues. Since I had moved to Baltimore, I kind of took a pay cut. I took a pay cut in that when I was in North Carolina, I had a lot of jobs. So money was never an issue for me. I just work and get what I want. Simple. Coming to Baltimore, I thought that since I was able to, with strangers, build friendships and get all these jobs, well, if I'm in a community with people that knows me, this should be simple. And it's not been. It has not been. I recently just started working again as an adjunct professor. That's a role that I got on my own. Despite reaching out, I talk to people, I let it be known. Again, another reason why I talk about being an intentional mentor is sometimes when people are struggling and going through things, I feel like a lot of people just want to do anything to act like they're helping, and they're not intentional. And it's frustrating. And I think that sometimes that's been some of the support I've gotten is just being intentional, or I should say the lack of being intentional, just doing whatever you can to meet what you think the need is. It's not right, but it is what it is. I lost my car. I had a brand new car, but I couldn't keep up with the no insurance. And it's the reason why is because I was down to one job. I didn't intend to be down to one job. I just figured, I know a lot of people. Somebody got a job that's hiring, right? I'm not bougie. Like I'll do work. I'm already doing my passion, my purpose. So I don't mind if I got to do some other work to keep me good in that space. And I'm going to say it. I have an amazing resume. Like I have 2 master's degrees, school counseling, higher education administration, wrote a thesis on improving graduation and retention rates for black and brown males. I have 5 years military experience as a leader, a first lieutenant. I hit all the markers. There's no job that I apply for that I don't hit everything. Like none. You're making it personal or political. And if you're making it political, I don't really know what that means because I don't even vote. And I'm going to tell you why I don't vote. I don't vote because I don't believe any of these leaders have completely met my values. Like, what are you doing for education? That's important to me. What are we doing for social welfare? That's important to me. I don't see no one talking about it. And since they're not talking about it, I'm not walking to the ballot. That's how I feel. I feel that the best way to express yourself is with action. And sometimes inaction is the strongest action, But again, I share all these things not to make myself sound like a victim because I'm not. Despite all that going on, would you believe that I still started a company? It's filed. The money's low, but we still have a green account. When I just placed 4th in the Greater Baltimore Urban League pitch competition. By the way, I am a one-man operation. I have no support. I don't have anybody working with me. I do everything completely by myself. So the fact that I do all that and I've made myself to this length, I think that's amazing. All the other organizations that were in that pitch competition against me, they all came there with teams, 3, 4, 5 people. So I think it's amazing to see what they're doing. But I think it's absolutely a grace of God and amazing what I've done by myself. I wonder sometimes if in an amazement, is it jealousy or hatred? Like, you think you better? And whenever someone says you think, it's really what they think because no one can read your mind. And, I get and I see stuff like that all the time, but I'm patient. This is going to work. I'm going to do what it takes. And if you're listening, if you're young, JustINSPIRE, the motto was meant to start mentoring with young people like 5th, 6th grade, support you guys through middle school, and really start attacking in 9th grade. Like while we're in ninth grade, we're getting ready for college. When we're in college, we're getting ready for our career. That's how the mentorship model should look. So what that means is that my middle school guys are doing what they can so that they can appeal to the premier high schools. And when they get to high school, they're doing what they can so that they can appeal to the major universities. We talk about starting a chess club. Why? Because we need community service. We have a podcast. Young people can come with me and create content, educate, motivate, and inspire. Community service. One of the key components outside of grades that universities look for when they're trying to think about acceptance. Do you do? You know, when I was in high school, I was in a government office for my BOCES school. I was an usher in church. I had a part-time job. I was a busy kid. I worked. And I'm going to tell you, during my 3 years working with Baltimore City Schools, I did not see anybody busy. Not at all. They are just going to school, sometimes if that, and coming home. And I'm like, this is a recipe for failure. And basically, in my 3 years, that's what I've kind of observed. It's like it's all recipe for failure. What are we doing to change? And this is how we get to the vision. You know, JustINSPIRE was born out of a desire to fill that gap. I wanted to create a program that doesn't focus on academics, but on building the life skills, things like social emotional learning, communication, social etiquette, and yes, chess, because I believe these are the tools that change lives. These are the soft skills that when applied, you can go into different rooms and make a big difference. You know, like I'm talking with a young man right now in my communications class, you know, and he's interested and he wants to go to college to study finance. He's thinking about going to a school like the University of Chicago, and he's scared that he won't measure up or he's not good enough. And I'm like, man, no, don't ever say that. Self-belief is everything. You was great enough the day you was born. And you show it so well you don't even realize it. Asking me how can I appeal to somebody? How do I demonstrate that I'm hungry for knowledge? And you just do it so naturally. You just have to believe in yourself, brother. And I'm gonna tell you what else. Lock in with me because I believe in you. And together we can make a plan to make this happen. One man can do anything. And if he's got somebody behind him, he's unbeatable. I don't know if we'll get to the University of Chicago, but we will get this young man in somewhere where he will excel. You want to know why he's going to excel? Because everything that he's got to do in the future, we're already thinking about it now. So we'll be preparing him while he's in college the same way somebody could have prepared me. But because I have my experiences from my pitfalls, I share that with him. You see, that's nothing about JustINSPIRE, man. It's about being a bridge builder, taking all the unfortunate experiences I've had in my life and turning them into lessons that help propel someone else forward. Give you a visual. You ever see those movies where sometimes there's a character, he's conflicted, maybe he's got a bit or he's got a curse he's got to lift. And in order to lift that curse, he's got to help someone else prevail. So that's my story. I believe that I'm going to break free of all these chains, all my struggles, all my demons are going to leave me as I help other young men. You know, like I helped this young man go to college and get out and get that finance job he wanted. The burden of what I did when I was in college trying to be a sports agent is gone because I took that experience and I've used it. I've extracted the knowledge from it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This podcast is just the beginning. Each episode, I want to bring you stories, strategies, and conversations that will inspire and equip you to thrive, no matter where you're starting from. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, greatness is within your reach. You just have to